So, how does society manufacture and promote neurosis? How does it manufacture neurosis into people? So this is a very important question, because to understand, how society promotes neurosis into people, we have to understand what creates neurosis, what creates the disintegration of the mind and body. And one way to understand this in a very clear, precise way is from the work of Wilhelm Reich on the idea of organomics. So Wilhelm Reich kind of believed basically that there's this fundamental energy within people, like an esoteric energy. He called it orgone energy. And he says that to live a healthy life basically is that we integrate this orgone energy into our lives. And psychoanalysis is basically the analysis of how orgone energy becomes disintegrated and how people live unhealthy lives because of the disintegration of this energy. It's like not integrated properly in a holistic way to create wholeness or to create a holistic, healthy mind and body unison. So to understand this, we have to look at what makes up a healthy life, and what would be the opposite of that and how society promotes that. So to live a healthy life, we need to be in what Wilhelm Reich calls a psychosomatic state. So within his idea of orgone energy, or organomic functionalism as he called it, was that we need to be in a state where soma, the physical body, and psyche, the mind, are in unison. And that those two components of our duality are recognize the fundamental energy within us, so that we do activities that create a holistic healing effect of unison, so that we can be fully expressive, fully authentic, fully ourselves, fully individuated as individuals. Now, the only way we can do this is by doing things that are psychosomatically unified. Doing activities, living a life where we are integrated. We are doing things that are in mind-body unison, mind-body flow states. And if we are not doing this, this causes neurosis. So if we are living a split life of being too mental or too physical, we create a splitting. And that's how things like repression, body armoring, kind of strange mannerisms, organomic dysfunctionalism, as he called it, would occur. So we want to avoid that. So how in society does society basically promote this kind of orgone energy dysfunctionalism? And there's kind of like three components to this, three very strong components to this. And I'd say number one would be that we live within a consumer morality. So consumer morality in the sense that we are kind of told to impress rather than expected to express ourselves. So like everything is basically about impression. And that's the opposite of expression. True expression is when we are unified within our mind and our body through kind of social activities with the environment around us. And when we are doing that, we are, in a sense, being passionate with what we are doing, and we are expressing ourselves in an extroverted way. And most things with regards to passions, or with regards to vocation, purpose, are usually from experiences that are psychosomatic. So, for example, the musician, the artist, all of these things, and what contribute all those things, different forms of art, dance, poetry, written poetry, spoken poetry, painting, pottery even, like all sorts of different things, permaculture, gardening, all of this type of stuff requires psychosomatic expression. Now, when we live in a consumer morality, we are basically living in the opposite of that. We are living by a morality that is designed to focus on the ideal this false ideal, this false idol of impression, trying to impress people rather than express people, because those two things are the complete opposite. Impression is all about trying to live up to some judgment that you expect from someone else that you don't even really know about. You're like, oh, I want to impress this person, or I want to buy this nice branded piece of clothing so that I am impressive. I want to consume this thing so that I come across impressive with these different things or whatever. A lot of consumerism is based around this kind of superficiality and not getting to the heart of self-expression itself, which is all about creativity and is actually the crux of individuation itself. So consumer morality is one thing. That's one way modern society disintegrates and splits apart the mind and the body so that we develop all these problems, these forms of neurosis and obsession with consumerism, and people reduction in people being creative and all of this, and self-expressive. And another one would be smartphones and social media, which you could kind of say is the opposite of what they're called, anti-social media. And they're not very smart phones, There's nothing we're doing with the smartphones that are intelligent most of the time, So that's another way, because what that does is that also is something that is more veered towards 100% mental, being in a mental state rather than a physical, rather than a balance between the mental and physical. Social media, the digitalization of everything, is extremely unhealthy because it basically creates a counterfeit reality of being social, and that itself is not true or not real. So that itself creates this disintegration, this splitting of soma and psyche, mind and body, and it causes a lot of psychological problems. Social media addiction, it creates like kind of mannerisms of escapism, where people are like using their smartphones to basically escape the reality they are living in, or they become like more socially anxious because they're using smartphones, or they're like more avoidant of things. There's all of these issues that come about with the internet in general. It's a net for like kind of capturing souls at this point, to basically reduce their creative potential. So you want to be very careful with how you kind of implement that into your life, and it's very destructive. So that's another thing, how this produces neurosis. So you've got consumer morality and social media and smartphones, because smartphones and social media also maintains this idea of superficiality, personas. These are the opposite aspects of expression and being authentic. Now, the last one would be more about our environment, what we live in. So, which is that of organized chaos. We live in organized chaos as a reality. Kind of like this pseudo-productivity reality, you could say. But that's also merged with this kind of utilitarianism of like how architecture is kind of built in the modern world. A lot of buildings today, a lot of social spaces, environments, urbanization is very, it doesn't actually help the individual be inspired, right? So this is the problem of utilitarianism. So you have a lot of modern architecture. It's about building things that are for the utility of living spaces, but none of these things are actually inspiring. They're kind of just these kind of dead, square, boxed housing, apartment buildings, very communistic style, brutalism, all of this kind of stuff. It's very rigid, it's very not very spontaneous, it's not creative, it's not artistic, and it's the problem of architecture. Architecture has become more of a utility thing rather than a creative thing, you know, when it should be a creative thing, because you need to create spaces for humans to live in that occupy the ability for there to be a connection to nature and the human spirit, and there isn't that anymore, or even utility in nature. There needs to be a blending of that. And you have that with a lot of what makes Europe Europe, you know. What makes Europe so famous is that, you know, the big cities, Valencia, Paris, so many cities within, you know, Venice, like all of these big cities that everyone knows about in Europe are signifiers of healthy urbanization. Now, when you have something, you know, which inspires people, you need architecture that inspires people so that they can create things, so that they can look at things and be like, wow, look at the history of this, look at the cultural significance, look at the detail, look at the dedication, look at the value, look at the virtues that resemble through this art, this architecture, you know. That is dead now. You know, the States is a good example of that. I think the States have always been kind of a weird example of a place that has been kind of monopolized through corporate urbanization and has kind of destroyed the potential for there to be something really creative. But this is why Europe is so famous, right? So you have a lot of these locations that are emotionally depressing, so where a lot of people live, you know, lack of color, lack of nature being intertwined within architecture, so that there's that connection to Earth, to the world, and all of this. And just apartment buildings and all this type of stuff. It's all utilitarian, which is the idea that anything that occupies utility is like the premium thing to have, you know, for like existence, which is a load of bollocks, because beauty is a form of utility. Beauty inspires. Inspiration utilizes creativity. If you don't have that, what the fuck? Like, you don't have anything in society that's going to be of real utility, really. You know, so there's these problems of utilitarianism. You know, yeah, utilitarianism's good if you want to create like a machine or an engine, and you want to create something that's very reliable. But not when it comes to architecture. It's been like applied to the wrong things. There should be like artistic endeavours. Because art is the thing that kind of catalyzes the inspiration of a society. And if you start killing that off, you basically start killing off the soul or the spirit of that place, of that location, of that world itself. Like, think of when the Notre Dame Cathedral, I believe it's a cathedral, right? When that started burning down, and like years ago, when that happened, it kind of like affected the country because it's such a cultural significance of beauty, right? That's something that means something, right? So we need to build more things like that, because that like upholds something to be amazed by, and for a people to be patriotic about, or at least caring of art in different forms and stuff like this. And this is the problem we're kind of in today, is that we are so detached from the artistic creative world that we just become alien, in the sense that we are always observing things from an out of focus. We go to museums, we go to art kind of galleries and stuff. We look at things, we observe things, but there's nothing actually that signifies today, signifies what it means to be in the 21st century artistically. You know, most of these things are all digital, and you can say, oh, that's the reality of the future world or whatever, but I don't believe so. I don't think it's really that powerful, you know. But the thing is that is what is that is another form of something that creates neurosis. It's emotionally depressing to live in a world like that, to live in an environment like that. When you live in an environment like that, the utilitarianism that's applied to that cuts off this ability for being able to live in an environment that creates that unity of the mind and body. So this is the problem. What we need to be doing is that we need to be doing things that connect us to our mind and our body in a unison. That's what a flow state is. Flow states are created by being in a unison between the mind and the body, through psychosomatic experiences, or living in a psychosomatic environment, or whatever it may be, or doing activities that are fundamentally psychosomatic. So that is my kind of way of kind of showing you, what creates neurosis, what creates these problems, what creates these faults that we are seeing in society today, and how can we, if we understand like what is actually causing it, then we know how to kind of push against it by doing more of the opposite of that, by trying to be more ergonomically functionable, doing things that unify the mind and body in a holistic way more and more every single day, through activities, through the passions, through creativity, fundamentally. So if you enjoyed this video, guys, make sure to give it a like, share it around, comment your thoughts down below, and if you're interested in doing any kind of one-on-one coaching with me, you can book in a free discovery call with the link in the description. You can book in a time and a date on whatever throughout the week and the next 7 days you wish to have. And of course, make sure you only do that if you actually are fundamentally interested in coaching with regards to procrastination, low self-esteem, creativity, all sorts of stuff. Make sure you only book in a call with me if you actually want to do that work. If you're actually like, I want to actually try and find solutions and apply practical solutions to the problems that I'm dealing with. So make sure to check that out if you're interested in something like that. Or if you're just curious, check out the references, reviews on my website. That's the link in the description. And also from the live webinar that I hosted last week on unlocking the mechanics of individuation, you can access that as well, just down below. You can download it for free as a pay what you want download, and you'll get the infographics as well that I used within that webinar. And I made it as a pay as you want, so that if you also want to try and show support with donations or whatever you want to do, you can also throw in a donation when you download it, if that's something that you feel inclined to do, because you've been a subscriber or you like the content and you've been following me for a couple of years or whatever. So thanks for watching, guys. Check out those links in the description, and I will speak to you in the next one. Thanks.